The bottle shattered against the wall like a gunshot in the dead of night, shards exploding across the sticky floor of O'Malley's, and I ducked just in time, feeling the whiskey spray sting my cheek like tiny accusations from a ghost I thought I'd buried. "You think you're tough, Mason? Hiding behind that bar rag like it makes you invisible?" The drunk's slur cut deeper than the glass, his eyes wild with the kind of rage that mirrors your own buried shame. And as the crowd murmured, I realized this wasn't just another bar fight. It was the echo of every door slammed in my face since I came out at 17. In that frozen second, before the bouncer hauled him out, a voice rose from the corner booth, soft as rain on a tin roof. "Hey, easy now. We've all got our storms, but this ain't the way to weather 'em." I wiped the sweat from my brow with the back of my hand, the metallic tang of blood mixing with the perpetual haze of cigarette smoke that clung to everything in O'Malley's like a bad memory. It was a Tuesday in late October, the kind of crisp Chicago evening where the wind off Lake Michigan howls through the alleyways, carrying the faint promise of winter's bite. The bar was a relic, tucked into the shadow of the L tracks in Wicker Park, its neon sign flickering open like a heartbeat on life support. Neon wasn't the only thing dying here. Patrons nursed their regrets one pour at a time, and I, the 28, was just the guy slinging them, my life a loop of ice clinking in glasses and small talk that never quite filled the silence inside me. That voice belonged to George, though I didn't know his name yet. He was new, or at least new to me, perched in the corner with a worn notebook splayed open on the scarred oak table, his fingers tracing the edges of a half-empty pint like he was reading Braille in the foam. Mid-30s, maybe, with salt and pepper hair cropped close, a jawline softened by laugh lines that hadn't seen much laughing lately, and eyes the color of faded denim, steady, seeing right through the bullshit. He wasn't yelling, he never did. Just that gentle timbre, wrapping around the chaos like a lullaby in a thunderstorm, diffusing the drunk's fury until the guy mumbled an apology and shuffled out into the night. I glanced over as I swept up the glass, our eyes meeting for the first time. There was no pity in his gaze, just a quiet understanding, like he'd been the one dodging bottles once. "You all right?" he asked, loud enough to carry but soft enough not to demand. I nodded, because what else do you do? Yeah. Part of the job. But my voice cracked, betraying the lie, and he tilted his head, that notebook closing with a soft snap. "Name's George. And if that's part of the job, you deserve a better gig. Or at least a drink on me after close." That was the hook, the way his words landed, not as flirtation, but as an invitation to breathe. I'd been holding mine for years, ever since Dad walked out after the family dinner where I finally said it aloud. "I'm gay, and I'm done pretending." Mom had cried, my sister had hugged me, but the silence from the man who'd taught me to throw a baseball, it echoed louder than any shout. 5 years in this city, chasing freelance graphic design gigs that paid the rent sporadically, falling back on bartending to fill the gaps. Dates? Fleeting shadows in apps. Guys who wanted the thrill but not the weight of my baggage. Peace? That was for other people, the ones without the scars. By midnight, the crowd thinned to stragglers, a couple whispering secrets over Cosmos, an old-timer nursing his third scotch, staring at the jukebox like it owed him answers. I flipped the closed sign and started wiping down the bar, the ritual that grounded me when everything else spun. George lingered, nursing that same pint, watching without watching. "You don't have to stick around," I said, finally, pouring myself a ginger ale to match his vibe. Cleanup's on me. He smiled. Faint but genuine. The kind that crinkles the corners of eyes. Figured you could use the company. Besides, I've got stories if you've got ears. And just like that, he unfolded one. From a rainy afternoon in a Brooklyn diner, where he'd lost his job as a copywriter for speaking up against a homophobic client, only to find himself busking on subways with poetry scribbled on cardboard. Voice like mine, he said, mimicking a deep baritone that wasn't his, doesn't command boardrooms. But it whispers truths that stick. We talked until the streetlights buzzed awake outside, the city humming its indifferent lullaby. He asked about my sketches. I doodled a quick logo on a napkin for a regular earlier, and I showed him, embarrassed by the raw lines of a skyline fractured by lightning. That's not just art, he murmured, tracing the storm clouds with a fingertip. That's you. All thunder, no rain. By 2 a.m., when I locked up, he walked me to the L station, his coat slung over my shoulders against the chill. No kiss, no number swap, just a see you tomorrow? That felt like a promise. The next shift blurred into routine, but George became the anomaly, the fixed point in the fog. He'd slide in around 9, claim his booth, and we'd carve out moments between orders. Him reading snippets from his notebook, verses about lost boys finding harbors in unexpected ports. Me sharing fragments of my week, the gig that ghosted me or the voicemail from mom that said, I miss you, without the words, I'm sorry. He listened, not the nodding, impatient kind, but the way you'd hold a fragile bird, letting silence speak when words failed. One rainy Thursday, the bar emptied early, thunder rumbling like applause for our solitude. George pulled out a battered guitar from under the table. Where had that come from? And strummed a melody that wove through the smoke, low and lilting, about a sailor adrift who finds his North Star in a stranger's gaze. Wrote that last year, he said, setting it down. After my ex decided peace meant peace without me. The vulnerability hung there, raw as an open wound, and I reached across the bar, our hands brushing electric, but not urgent. What makes you think you don't deserve it now? His laugh was bittersweet, eyes dropping to the strings. History's a hell of a teacher, Mason. Teaches you to doubt the map. But in that doubt, I saw my own reflection. The ex who cheated because it wasn't serious anyway. The family holidays skipped because tension tasted like ash. We leaned in, foreheads nearly touching over the scarred wood. And for the first time in years, the ache in my chest softened, like ice under spring sun. Weeks melted into a rhythm. George's arrivals marked by that gentle voice calling my name across the din. Our conversations deepening like roots in fertile soil. He'd bring coffee from the corner roastery on off nights, black and strong, remembering I took it without sugar after I'd mentioned it once. I'd slip him extra napkins for his sketches, watching his pen dance across them, portraits of barflies with souls etched in their wrinkles. It was romance without the script, built on stolen glances and shared silences, the kind where his hand on my back as we navigated the crowded alley after close felt like home. But peace, I learned, is a fragile thing, easily shattered by the weight of unspoken truths. The first crack appeared on a frost-laced November evening, the bar packed with holiday-early escapees drowning Yuletide cheer in bourbon. George was late, unusual, his booth empty like a missing tooth in the crowd's grin. I poured mechanically, smiling through gritted teeth at tipsy toasts, but my eyes kept drifting to the door. The bells jingle a false alarm each time. By 11, worry gnawed like the cold seeping through the drafty windows. When he finally slipped in, collar turned up against the sleet, there was a shadow in his step, a hesitation that made my stomach twist. "Sorry," he murmured, sliding onto the stool closest to me for once, forgoing the booth. "Rough day." His voice was still gentle, but threaded with fatigue, like a melody played too long. I nodded, sliding him his usual, our fingers lingering on the glass. "Wanna talk?" He shook his head, but his eyes, those denim blues, betrayed him, flickering with something unsaid. Instead, he pulled out the notebook, flipping to a new page, and began to read. A poem about bridges burned and rivers crossed, the words wrapping around us like a shared scarf. The night wore on, the crowd thinning as the storm outside raged. But George stayed, his presence a quiet anchor. After close, we huddled in the alley, sharing a cigarette I bummed from the lost and found. Neither of us smokers, but the ritual felt right, smoke curling like questions between us. "It's nothing," he said finally, exhaling a ghost. "Just old ghosts knocking," pressed, gently, because that's what we built, space for truths, and he sighed, the sound heavy as wet snow. "My brother called today. Family stuff. The kind that reminds you some doors stay locked. I knew that lock, the one Dad had turned after that dinner, his absence of vault I couldn't crack." "Families," I said, bumping his shoulder with mine. "They're like bad whiskey burns going down, lingers too long." He chuckled, soft and real, and turned to me, raindrops beating on his lashes like unshed tears. "You're good for me, Mason." Like fresh air in a stuffy room. Our lips met then, tentative as the first snowflake, tasting of ale and possibility. It was a kiss born of unraveling, not conquest, slow, exploratory, his hand cupping my neck with a tenderness that made my knees weak. From there, the world tilted toward us. Weekends blurred into lazy mornings in my cramped walk-up above a laundromat, where the hum of dryers lulled us to sleep. George would wake first, brewing coffee while I sketched him from the bed, his profile against the fire escape, city lights painting him in gold. We'd wander Lincoln Park, hands brushing in the crowd, stealing moments under the elms where leaves fell like confetti for our secret. He opened up more, raised in a small Ohio town where different meant dangerous, coming out in college only to lose friends who'd sworn brotherhood. "I built walls," he admitted one afternoon, feeding ducks by the lagoon. "But you're the door I didn't know I needed." I shared my fractures too. The freelance drought that kept me chained to O'Malley's, the ex named Tyler who'd promised forever then fled when my depression surfaced like a storm surge. He said I was too much, I confessed, voice small against the water's lap. George pulled me close, his breath warm on my temple. "No, Mason. You're just enough. The world's too small for you." His words were balm, his voice the steady hum that quieted my inner thunder. But shadows lengthened before dusk. December brought twinkling lights to the streets, families bundled against the cold, and with them, the ache of what I'd lost. Mom's annual card arrived, stock photo of a hearth, words clipped, "Thinking of you this season." No invite, no apology. I crumpled it in the bar's back room, fists clenched until knuckles whitened. George found me there, mid-shift, and without a word, wrapped me in his arms, humming a tune low and soothing until the sobs subsided. "You deserve more than cards," he whispered. You deserve a table set for you. That night, he surprised me, dragged me to a hole-in-the-wall jazz club on Clark Street, where the air thrummed with sax and stories. We sat in a crimson booth, knees touching, his hand tracing patterns on my thigh under the table. Not urgent, but intimate, a language of touch we'd begun to speak fluently. Midway through a ballad about lost loves reclaimed, he leaned in, voice barely above the music. Move in with me. My place in Logan Square. It's got a studio for your art, a porch for coffee. Room for us. My heart stuttered, joy tangled with terror. George. That's huge. He smiled, that crinkle-eyed one. So are we. I said yes, because in his gaze, I saw peace not as absence, but as presence, ours. We spent New Year's Eve packing my life into boxes, laughing over faded Polaroids and the guitar that had become his constant companion. The bar felt lighter those last shifts, regulars ribbing me about the mystery guy who'd stolen their bartender's smiles. Even the smoke seemed less choking, the clink of glasses a toast to beginnings. January dawned brittle and bright, Chicago's winter wrapping the city in ice crystal armor. Our new rhythm. Mornings tangled in sheets that smelled of him. Pine soap and ink. Afternoons where I designed logos on my laptop while he typed freelance articles for a queer-lit mag, his voice narrating drafts aloud, drawing me in like a tide. Evenings, we'd cook, pasta from scratch, his nana's recipe, arguments over garlic quantities dissolving into flour-dusted kisses. But peace, I've learned, is a garden tended, but vulnerable to weeds. The first weed sprouted subtly. A phone call George took in the kitchen one gray afternoon, his tone shifting from gentle to guarded, the door clicking shut behind him. Work, he said later, waving it off, but his eyes avoided mine, lingering on the snow-draped porch. I let it slide, because trust is a muscle, flexed gently. Then came the late nights, deadlines, he'd explain, slipping in after midnight, notebook clutched like a shield. Our conversations shortened, his poems turning inward, verses of isolation that mirrored fractures I hadn't voiced. By Valentine's, the air between us crackled with unspoken frost. He planned a dinner, candlelight flickering on takeout Thai, because who needs fancy when we've got this? But midway, his phone buzzed, insistent. He silenced it, but the damage lingered, a shadow at the table. Everything okay? I asked. Fork paused over pad thai. He nodded too quickly. Yeah, just family. Brother again. The lie tasted metallic, even unsaid, and when we made love that night, it was tender but tentative, bodies seeking what words withheld. Doubt crept in like fog off the lake, thickening with each evasion. I buried it in work, picking up extra shifts at O'Malley's despite my notice, the familiar haze a numb embrace. One shift, a regular big-hearted Eddie, who'd lost his partner to AIDS in the 90s, noticed my distraction. That glow you had, kid, is dimming. Talk to him. I wanted to. God, I did, but the words stuck, fearing they'd shatter the fragile whole. The shatter came on a blustery March evening, wind whipping Michigan Avenue into a frenzy. I came home early from a client meeting, arms full of groceries for the stew I'd promised, only to find the apartment dim, George's guitar propped against the wall like an accusation. Voices murmured from the bedroom, low, intimate, his gentle timbre laced with urgency. I can't keep doing this, Alex. Mason. He's everything. Alex. The name landed like a gut punch, and I froze in the doorway, bags slipping to the floor with a thud that silenced them. George emerged, face ashen, followed by a man, tall, polished, with the kind of easy smile that hides knives. I realized, the one from the poems, the one who'd left for peace without me. But now, here, in our bed's rumple. Mason, George breathed, reaching, but I stepped back, the world narrowing to the pulse in my ears. How long? My voice was steady, a miracle. He faltered, eyes pleading. A month. Coffee that turned into. I don't know. I was scared of us getting too real, too fast. Thought I could fix the old break before it broke us. Betrayal isn't a blade. It's erosion, slow until the dam bursts. Alex murmured apologies, slipping out like smoke, but the damage rooted deep. You taught me I deserved peace, I whispered, tears hot on my cheeks. And then you stole it. George sank to his knees, voice cracking. I love you, Mason. This was me being stupid. Not done, but love, I'd learned, needs soil trust, watered daily. Ours was barren now. The days that followed were a blur of hollow routines. The apartment a minefield of George's things. His mug on the counter, notebook on the coffee table, each a reminder of the man who'd whispered peace only to fracture it. I slept on the couch, the springs digging into my back like penance, while he paced the nights away, murmuring regrets to the dark. Give me a chance to fix this, he'd plead at dawn, eyes red-rimmed, voice stripped to its gentle core. But chance felt like charity, and I had none left to give. Work became my exile. O'Malley's welcomed me back full-time, the smoke thicker now, a veil for the numbness settling in my chest. Regulars sensed the shift. Eddie sliding me free shots I nursed without drinking, the old-timer grunting chin up, kid over his scotch. Poured, smiled, dodged questions, but the bar's rhythm couldn't drown the echo. Alex's laugh in our bedroom, George's confession like a verse unfinished. One evening, midway through a slow pour, the door jingled, and there he was, George, coat dusted with April rain, hesitation etching lines deeper than before. He didn't approach, just took his old booth, notebook open but untouched. I served him silently, our eyes meeting in the glass's reflection. His pleading, mine guarded. I'm here, he said softly, when the crowd ebbed. Not leaving until you believe I'm sorry. I wanted to rage, to shatter a bottle like that first night, but exhaustion won. Sorry doesn't glue the pieces, George. It just leaves the edges sharp. He nodded, unflinching, and began to write, feverishly, pen scratching like a confession. When he slid the page across later, it was a poem. In the bar's haze, I found your storm / thought my whisper could calm the form / but I brought thunder of my own / left you shattered. Standing alone / peace isn't given. It's earned in the fight / let me rebuild. Under your light. Words. Always his weapon. Gentle barbs that pierced. Pocketed it, walking him to the door without reply. But the seed lodged doubt in the betrayal, hope in the man who'd knelt. Spring unfolded grudgingly, cherry blossoms mocking the frost in my heart. We coexisted uneasily. Shared meals where conversation skirted the chasm. Nights where his hand sought mine in sleep, and I'd let it stay, too weary to pull away. Therapy entered the picture, mine, mandated by a friend who'd seen my hollow eyes. Dr. Lena, with her no-nonsense Midwest drawl, unpacked the layers. Dad's silence as abandonment, Tyler's flight as confirmation, George's slip as the cruelest echo. Betrayal, she said, isn't the end. It's the forge. What you build after matters. George tried. God, did he try? Mornings brought coffee and apologies. Afternoons, his voice reading self-help podcasts aloud, dissecting his fears, the terror of permanence after Alex's casual cruelty, the impulse to sabotage what bloomed too bright. I ran back to familiar pain, he admitted one rainy Saturday, us cross-legged on the porch, city rain sheeting the view. Because new joy is terrifying. I listened, the gentle cadence pulling at scar tissue, and for the first time, I touched his face. Not in anger, but curiosity. Then earn the joy, George. Show me it's worth the terror. He did, in increments. A weekend getaway to the Indiana dunes, where Lake Michigan's waves crashed like unresolved symphonies, and we walked barefoot, sand gritty between toes, his hand in mine a tentative bridge. He shared letters, old ones from Alex, poison disguised as love, and burned them in a beach fire, flames devouring the past as his voice narrated the release. This ends here. You begin. That night, under stars pricked like promises, we kissed, not as mend, but as might slow, exploratory, bodies remembering the language of trust. Back in the city, the rebuild gained traction. I picked up a steady design gig for a local queer youth center, logos blooming into murals that voiced the silenced. George submitted his poetry chapbook, Whispers in Smoke, inspired by our bar nights, and the acceptance letter arrived like spring's first thaw. We celebrated with cheap wine on the fire escape, toasting to peace earned. His head on my shoulder, voice humming a melody that drowned the traffic below. But conflict, like weather, shifts without warning. May brought Mom's call, unexpected, her voice thin over the line. Mason, your sister's getting married. In June. We'd like you there. The invitation hung, laced with the unsaid. Dad's reluctance. The family's fragile détente. I paced the kitchen, George watching from the table, his gentle presence a steady hum. Go, he urged. Not for them, for you. Show them the man you've become. The wedding was in suburban Ohio, a manicured lawn under a tent white as surrender. I arrived alone, nerves jangling like keys, suit borrowed from George smelling faintly of his cologne. Mom hugged me tight, tears unspoken. Dad nodded from afar, grip firm on a beer. My sister glowed, vows exchanged in sunlight that forgave nothing but promised much. At the reception, as toasts rang, Dad approached, awkward, beer loosened. Son, I've been thinking about that dinner. I was scared of losing you to a world I didn't understand. His voice cracked, not gentle like George's, but raw. I'm trying now. We talked, haltingly, over cake about baseball games missed, the years squandered. No grand absolution, but a door cracked, light seeping. Driving back to Chicago that night, windows down to the highway's rush, I called George, voice thick. It was messy, but real. He listened. Then, proud of you, Mason. That's your piece, claiming it. June swelled with possibility. Pride parades where we marched hand in hand, rainbows clashing with the city's gray, his voice joining chants that echoed our story. The chapbook launch at a cozy bookstore in Andersonville, readings under strung lights, his gentle timbre captivating the room, dedicating the title poem to the storm who taught me calm. I stood in the back, heart full, realizing love wasn't absence of conflict, but navigating it together. Yet, as summer's heat baked the streets, a new shadow loomed not from within, but without. George's editor called with buzz, a publisher interested in expanding the chapbook into a full memoir. American voices, they said. Raw, relatable, excitement buzzed. But so did pressure, deadlines, interviews, a reading tour snaking through the Midwest. It's a chance, he said, eyes alight, to share what we've built. I nodded, proud, but unease stirred, distance, the pull of spotlights on fragile foundations. The first sign was a weekend in Milwaukee, George returning Sunday night, exhausted, phone clutched like a talisman. Great crowds, he shared, but his smile faltered, words clipped. I pressed gently, and he sighed. Alex showed up. At the signing. Congratulated me, all charm. Stirred up old dust. My chest tightened, not jealousy, but memory's sting. And he met my eyes, honest. I told him we're done. For good. But it rattled me. We talked it through, voices weaving repair, ending in each other's arms, reaffirming the now. July's humidity amplified the cracks. Tour dates piled. George gone more, Detroit, Minneapolis, calls nightly, his voice a lifeline, gentle reassurances across static. Miss you, he'd murmur. Can't wait to breathe your air. I filled voids with work, murals expanding to gallery walls. But loneliness crept, a quiet thief. One night, alone with takeout and the TV's drone, doubt whispered, was peace just borrowed time? The climax brewed in August, heat wave mirage over asphalt. George was due back from a ST. Lewis reading, but the train delayed, text sparse. By midnight, worry fermented to fear, and when the door finally opened, he stumbled in, reeking of bourbon, eyes glassy. Mason, he slurred, collapsing onto the couch. It was a mess. Alex. He was there again. Pushed drinks. Old stories. I slipped. The word detonated, rage surging like a summer squall. Slipped how? My voice rose, fists clenched. He buried his face, sobs muffled. Talked too much. Let him in my head. Nothing happened, I swear, but I drank, drowned the noise. Came home to you, betrayal's echo, sharper now, because we'd rebuilt on promises. You taught me trust, I shouted, pacing the humid room. And now this? Again, he reached, pleading, voice breaking. I'm weak sometimes, Mason. But I choose you. Every time, the fight raged, words hurled like thunderclaps, his gentle voice fracturing into desperation, mine into accusations honed by old wounds. I can't keep rebuilding you, I yelled, storming to the bedroom, door slamming like finality. He followed, kneeling again, tears streaming. Don't let my storm drown us. Please. Dawn found us spent, curled on the floor, exhaustion forging a truce. We need space, I whispered, the words a blade turned inward. He nodded, shattered. If that's peace for you, I love you enough to give it. Space was a cruel teacher, the apartment emptying like a lungs exhale. George packed a bag, essentials, guitar, notebook, his movements deliberate, eyes avoiding the life we'd woven into the walls. Call if you need me, he said at the door, voice a ghost of its gentle self, then gone, the click echoing like a period. I sank against the frame, the silence vast, Chicago's summer hum mocking from the open window. Days blurred into a numb haze. Work at O'Malley's was autopilot, pores precise, smiles automatic, but the bar felt haunted, his booth a void where regulars now gossiped. Eddie cornered me one shift, heard about the blowout. Kid, love's not a straight line, it's a damn scribble. You gonna let one skid erase the map? I shrugged, but his words lodged, a thorn in the fog. Therapy with Dr. Lena delved deeper. Betrayal's pattern, your father's silence, Tyler's exit. Now this is teaching you to armor up. But armor keeps out the good too. I journaled raw scrawls of hurt, fear, the ache for his voice like a missing limb. The queer center gig evolved, workshops for youth, sharing my murals as metaphors for mending. One boy, 16 and freshly out, traced my lightning skyline. It's like breaking, but beautiful after. His words mirrored George's poems, stirring the seed of maybe. A week in, Mom called unprompted, her voice warmer over the line. Heard from your sister you seemed off at the wedding. Want to talk? We did. For hours, me spilling the saga, her listening without the old judgment. I pushed your father, she admitted. He's seeing a counselor now. For us? For you. Tears came, cathartic, and she ended with, come home sometime. Not as the prodigal, just as my son. It wasn't absolution, but a bridge extended, humanistic in its imperfection. George's absence amplified the city's pulse. Pride afterglow fading to everyday queer life. Coffee dates with friends I'd neglected. Gallery openings where my art hung. Whispers of talent that chipped at self-doubt. One night, wandering Wicker Park streets, I passed O'Malley's, the neon winking like an old friend. Inside, impulse led me to the jukebox, punching in the jazz ballad from our first real date. The melody filled the space, and there, in the corner booth, sat a stranger, but his posture echoed George's, notebook open. Coincidence? Or the universe's gentle nudge? I didn't call him. Not yet. Instead, I wrote a letter, unsent, pouring the turmoil, the rage at his weakness, the love for his light, the terror of trying again. Your voice taught me peace, I scrawled. But now silence teaches me strength. It ended unfinished. Like us. September cooled the air, leaves turning like pages in a story retold. The memoir deal solidified, George's email sporadic. Professional, launch in October. Wish you were here. I attended the Chicago reading incognito, back row of the packed venue, heart hammering as he took the stage. His voice, that gentle timbre, filled the room, reading our story veiled in verse. Storms met, peace chased, betrayals weathered. The audience leaned in, rapt, and when he dedicated it to the one who showed me home, my throat closed, tears blurring the spotlight. After, in the milling crowd, our eyes met, his widening in shock, mine steady. No words then, just a nod, the space between us electric with possibility. He didn't approach, I didn't flee. It was enough, a thread reknit. October's winds carried change. My murals caught a curator's eye, leading to a solo show, thunder and calm, themes of fracture and forge. Opening night buzzed, friends, center kids, even mom and dad, awkward but present, his arm around her shoulder a quiet victory. George's text arrived mid-toast, heard about the show. Broke my heart not to be there. Proud, I replied. Simple, come see it. Saturday. He did. Stood in the gallery's white space, denim eyes tracing my canvases, lightning tamed by horizons, bars hazy with hope. It's you, he whispered when we finally spoke, voice trembling. All of it. We walked the exhibit in silence first. Then words tumbled. His tour revelations, facing Alex's manipulations head-on, therapy uncovering abandonment roots from a father's early death. I sabotaged because I feared losing you like I lost him. Stupid, but true. I shared my summer. The armor shed, bridges built with family, art as exhale. I needed space to see. Peace isn't you fixing me. This is broken but building. His hand found mine, tentative, and I didn't pull away. Can we try? He asked, gentle as ever. Not perfect. Just us. I nodded, the yes a leap, humanistic in its hope. November thanked us with golden light, the apartment refilling not with bags, but presence. George moved back incrementally, guitar in the corner, notebook on the table, mornings where his voice narrated dreams over coffee. We set boundaries, weekly check-ins, therapy tandem, turning conflict into curriculum. Holidays loomed, and we planned. A quiet Thanksgiving with Mom and my sister, Dad invited but optional. One step, George said, squeezing my hand. The bar called 2, my last shift at O'Malley's. Farewell pour. George sat in his booth, reading to the crowd. A new poem, Peace in the Pour, about smoky havens and voices that heal. Laughter rippled, applause thundered, and Eddie clapped my back. Knew you'd find your scribbles end. As we locked up together, alley snow falling soft. His arm around me felt like arrival, not endpoint, but horizon. Winter deepened, but so did we. Christmas Eve, we strung lights on the porch, cityscape twinkling below, his voice humming carols off-key. Deserve this? He murmured, nuzzling my neck. We do, I replied. Earned it. No grand gestures, just presence. The gentle cadence of his breath sinking mine. Yet, stories don't end neat. They evolve. January brought George's memoir release, nationwide buzz, readings in New York, LA. Tour again, I asked, old fears flickering. He pulled me close. With you. Or not at all. We compromised. Weekends away. Calls like lifelines. Trust a muscle strengthened. By spring's return, peace wasn't a destination, but a practice, dramatic in its depths, emotional in its exposures, romantic in its reaches, humanistic in its humanness. We'd betrayed, conflicted, climaxed in chaos, but emerged, voices intertwined, his gentle whisper teaching me, mine thundering back love. And in the quiet moments, as cherry blossoms fell like forgiven yesterdays, I knew we deserved this. Again, and always. Wait, no, that's not the end. Stories like ours don't wrap in bows. They unravel further, testing the seams. As March bloomed tentative, green shoots piercing Chicago's concrete, George's memoir hit shelves with a ripple that swelled to waves. Reviews poured in praise for its raw American heart, queer narratives resonating from coasts to heartland. But success, like love, carries weight. The calls started subtly, podcasts wanting his voice, panels on healing after heartbreak. He glowed, that gentle timbre amplified, but I saw the strain, late nights drafting responses, eyes shadowed by screens. "It's good," he'd say, kissing my temple. "For us. Builds the life." I nodded, pouring my own energy into the gallery's expansion. Commissions for community centers, workshops swelling with faces hungry for stories like mine. April's rains mirrored the undercurrent. A New York reading pulled him east for a week, our first separation since the rebuild. Airport goodbyes were soft, his hand lingering on my cheek, voice promising, "Home soon." "Love you," calls bridged the miles, his hotel anecdotes. My bar stories, I'd picked up occasional shifts at O'Malley's for old time's sake. But on night 4, static crackled. "Busy here, babe. Talk tomorrow." Tomorrow stretched. A text substituting. Panel ran long. "Miss you." Unease stirred. Familiar as an old scar itching. I busied with a mural for a pride center. Vibrant figures emerging from shadows, hands linked in defiance. Dr. Lena noted it in session. Progress, Mason. But watch, old patterns tempt when distance dilutes. I journaled, reaffirming, trust earned, not assumed. He returned energized, arms full of bagels from Zabbers, stories tumbling like confetti. Met folks like us, survivors. We reconnected fiercely that night, bodies and breaths realigning, doubts dissolving in dawn's light. But a week later, mail brought the crack. A care package from New York, addressed to him, books. A note from the event host, "Can't wait for round 2. Alex sends regards." Alex. The name, innocuous in ink, detonated. I confronted gently, over porch coffee, rain pattering like accusations. He was there. George sighed, setting down his mug, eyes meeting mine steady. "Yeah." Bumped into him at the after-party. Polite chat, nothing more. I shut it down, relief mixed with residue. Why the note? He saw it, reached across. Transparency. Remember? Full story. He apologized, properly this time. Said he's in therapy, owning his shit. I told him about you. Boundaries. Mason. Solid. We talked it through, his voice gentle, unpacking the encounter's unease, my fears of echoes. It bonded us deeper, vulnerability the mortar. "No more surprises," he vowed. "We're in this." Thunder and whisper. May's warmth coaxed us outdoors. Picnics in Grant Park, where we'd lie on blankets, his head in my lap, fingers toying with my hair as I sketched the skyline. Family wove in too. A weekend in Ohio. Mom's kitchen filled with laughter. Dad's awkward jokes over grill smoke. "Proud of you boys," he grunted once, clapping George's shoulder. The words a milestone. My sister pulled me aside. "He makes you shine, little bro." Hold on. Success snowballed for both. My show toured to Milwaukee, his book climbing indie lists. We celebrated with a getaway to Door County, lighthouse-dotted shores, cherry orchards in bloom. Evenings by the fire, his guitar strumming ballads we'd co-write, lyrics of redemption. "This is peace," he'd murmur, lips brushing my temple. Multiplied, but June's pride season stirred undercurrents. Parades swelled, activism calling, George keynoting a youth summit, his voice rallying hundreds. "Your stories aren't whispers, they're roars. Claim your peace." I watched from the wings, heart swelling, but afterward, a fan approached, young, earnest, thanking him with a hug too lingering. Jealousy flickered, irrational, and I confessed over post-march beers. "Silly," he laughed, soft, human. "But you're my roar." Mason. July's heat wave tested tempers. A deadline crunch left him snappish, my commission lagging in humidity. A spat erupted, petty, over dishes, but escalated to core fears. "Are we drifting?" I accused. He pulled back, voice steadying. "No. Growing." Together, we cooled off with a walk along the lake, waves lapping apologies, ending in laughter at a street vendor's falafel fail. August brought the memoir's apex, a national tour announcement, months on the road. Panic surged, images of empty beds, static voices. "I can't," I said, voice cracking over dinner. He nodded, no defense. Then we pivot. Virtual readings, weekends home. Or I say no. We negotiated boundaries like buoys. Weekly retreats, no after-parties solo. "Us first," he affirmed, sealing with a kiss salt-tanged from the pier. September's equinox balanced scales. My art landed a magazine feature, Chicago's Queer Visionary, validation washing old doubts. George's book hit bestseller whispers, but he grounded it, dedicating proceeds to the center where my murals lived. Fall foliage framed our routines. Apple picking upstate, his voice narrating leaf fall poetry, my hand in his a constant. October circled back, anniversary of our first kiss in that alley. We returned to O'Malley's, now under new management but echoes intact. Eddie bought rounds, toasting to scribbles that stick. Closing time, snow flurrying early. We danced in the empty bar to the jukebox's jazz, bodies swaying, his breath warm. 1 year of earning, winter whispered warnings anew. November elections polarized airwaves, anti-LGBT bills snaking through states. George's platform amplified, op-eds, protests, his gentle voice a clarion against hate. I joined, murals becoming banners, our home a war room of passion. But stress etched him, sleepless nights, voice hoarse from speeches. "Worth it?" I asked, massaging knots from his shoulders. "For the kids like we were? Yes. For us? Always." Thanksgiving gathered us, extended family now. Mom's table groaning with turkey, Dad carving with steady hands. Toasts veered personal. "To second chances," he said. "Eyes on me, George." Tears pricked. Peace, familial and fierce. December's chill deepened bonds. Holiday markets, mittened hands. His gift, a custom notebook, leather-bound, inscribed, "For our thunderous whispers." Mine, a portrait, him midstrum, eyes alight. Christmas morn, porch lights twinkling. We vowed, another year of us. Yet, as 2026 dawned, a quiet conflict simmered. Not betrayal, but evolution's pull. George's agent pitched a novel deal. My gallery eyed a residency in San Francisco. Separate paths? Fear laced the question. He cupped my face, Voice eternal gentle. Parallel. Always converging. Peace, we learned, isn't static, it's the dance. Dramatic dips and romantic rises. Emotional valleys humanly climbed. In the Smoky bar's memory, his voice still teaches, I deserve it. We do. Again. The new year unfurled with tentative grace. Chicago's skyline etched in hoarfrost against January's steel blue skies. Our lives, once a bar's hazy loop, now branched like the L tracks overhead, converging, diverging, but always laced with intention. George's novel contract demanded focus, pages piling in our sunlit studio, his voice murmuring drafts to me over takeout, characters echoing our scars, redemption's hard won. Think it'll resonate? He'd ask, vulnerability peeking through success's sheen. I trace his knuckles. Reply, like you do. My residency offer crystallized mid-month, a 6-month stint in the Bay Area, curating queer art collectives, funding flights home monthly. Excitement warred with ache. San Francisco's fog called to the artist in me, but George's warmth anchored. We mapped it on the kitchen table. Calendars synced, virtual dates via grainy video, his readings streamed, my sketches shared pixel by pixel. Adventure, not amputation, he quipped, sealing the plan with a kiss that tasted a future. February's Valentine's blurred romance with reality. He surprised me with a weekend in the dunes again. Snow-dusted sands, bonfire crackling as we roasted marshmallows, his guitar weaving love songs into the wind. To distances bridged, we toasted with thermoses of spiked cider. Back home, the goodbye loomed, my flight in March, his book tour kicking off. We packed together, his suitcase with pressed shirts, mine with easels and dreams, laughter masking the lump in my throat. The separation began with airport rituals, his hand in mine through security, voice steady. Call when you land. Love you to the fog and back. San Francisco enveloped me. Vibrant murals in the Mission, queer bars pulsing with unapologetic joy, collaborators sparking ideas like fireworks. The center buzzed, workshops where immigrants and elders co-created, stories blooming on canvas. Nights, though, echoed hollow, video calls his face a window, gentle voice bridging time zones. Miss your thunder, he'd say, and I'd laugh, hiding the storm of solitude. April's cherry blossoms in Golden Gate Park mocked my uprooted heart. George's tour hit highs, sold-out venues in Austin, Boston, but cracks showed in texts. Crowd loved it, but exhaustion's real. I urged rest. Sent care packages of Chicago deep dish mix. Notes, fuel for your whisper. Distance distilled us. Conversations deeper. Conflicts nipped via honesty packs. One call. His voice wavered. Alex emailed. Congrats on the book. Polite, but stirs silt. I breathed. Responded, share it all. We're solid. He did. Reading the exchange aloud. Boundaries reaffirmed. May's fog lifted revelations. My exhibit, Bridges Unbuilt, drew crowds. Reviews praising emotional cartography. Mom visited, wide-eyed at the vibrancy. Dad's card arriving, kicking myself for missing this. Proud. George's novel draft arrived digitally. I beta read, margins filled with hearts and This Is Us. Pride Month peaked with a joint virtual panel, him in DC. Me in SF voices intertwining on love in the long haul. Audience questions probing our truth. It's choice, he said. Eyes on the camera. Daily. defiantly. June's solstice brought convergence. I flew home for a week, the apartment welcoming like an old sweater. We devoured each other, not urgently, but gratefully, bodies rediscovering rhythms, mornings tangled in sheets. A spontaneous road trip to the Wisconsin woods, hiking trails where ferns whispered secrets, his hand steadying me over roots. This, he said, Lakeview picnic, is peace's pulse. July's heat found us navigating turbulence. Tour fatigue peaked for him, a canceled flight, missed connection leaving him stranded in Dallas. My workshop hit snag, funding cut, forcing scramble. Irritation flared in a call. Why can't things align? I snapped. He paused, gentle as ever, because life's not scripted. But we improvise. We did me sourcing grants, him journaling the chaos into chapters. Vulnerability check. Feeling adrift? A bit. You? Same. Anchor me. August's residency midpoint brought introspection. I wandered Alcatraz's echoes, contemplating cages, self-imposed, societal, and sketched George's face in the cell's gloom, freedom's light on his features. Shipped home. It arrived as his birthday gift. He called, voice thick, you see me, Mason. All of me. His novel revisions flowed, beta feedback glowing. We celebrated virtually with wine toasts, plotting a post-residency cabin retreat. September's equinox equaled our scales. Back in Chicago for the month, we volunteered at the center, him reading to kids, me guiding paints, synergy sparking a joint project, a chapbook of poetry and illustrations. Whispers illustrated. Submissions buzzed. Acceptance came swift. Fall's colors framed launches. Joint event at the gallery. His voice over my visuals. Crowd moved to tears. October's chill nipped at heels. My return to SF loomed, but George's tour wrapped. Exhausted triumph. Book 2 whispers. A spat brewed. Need you here, he confessed, voice frayed. Need the fog's clarity, I countered. Resolution in compromise. Holiday homecoming. Then decision time. No rushing, dear. Lena advised in a joint session. Evolve together. November's gratitude grounded us. Early return for Thanksgiving. Mom's table expanded. Dad's stories flowing freer. George's hand under the cloth, a secret steadiness. We announced the chapbook. Cheers rippled. Family pride tangible. Post-feast walk. Leaves crunching. His arm around me. This patchwork family's ours. December's lights twinkled promise. Residency ended with a bang, solo show sellout. Residency extended optional. I chose home. New Year's Eve. Atop Willis Tower. City sprawled below. His voice in my ear. To scribbles unending. Fireworks burst. Mirroring hearts. 2026 bloomed full. Spring's renewal saw the chapbook soar. Tours tandem, us tag-teaming stages. Thunder and whisper in harmony. Summer's lake days. Fall's orchard halls. Winter's porch hymns. Life as seasons. Us eternal. Yet, climax whispers in quiet. A health scare. George's checkup flagging fatigue. Tests pending. We faced it hand in hand. Voices united. Whatever. Together. Benign. But the scare forged deeper. Peace not assumed, but embraced. Dramatic in dread. Romantic in resolve. Humanistic end. No tidy bow, but a tapestry, betrayals mended. Conflicts conquered. Love's gentle voice teaching. We deserve this peace, flawed and fierce. Again, forever.